What's going on, guys? You found Bottom Tier Collector, and I'm your host, The Bearded One. Today, we got a top tier story from a top tier character delivered to you by a bottom tier reader. We're doing Wolverine number 2. I'm going to get right into it, and we'll put all the house cleaning at the end of the video. So, immediately, we're jumped into a bar in Madripoor, a rough and tough kind of place. A place that clean-cut, shiny, blonde, young women like the woman we're seeing, Lindsay McCabe, enters. Wolverine's kind of narrating here. And it's kind of done. It's just got this corny Clint Eastwood narration feel. Wolverine comes across to me as Dirty Harry or Clint Eastwood in general. And I like that. I like that. It's a good corny. It's good, wholesome, corny fun. It's not a knock on the storytelling. It's not a knock on the writing. But yeah, it's a rough and tumble town. The rough and tumble bar. Madripoor is far away from society. It's more of an anarchic place in the world. It's not really a place the law really fools around with. And Lindsay McCabe thinks that she can just walk in here and be fine, and everybody starts flirting with, or starts giving her looks. I don't want to say flirting with her, but they were giving her looks, kind of easing on into her, these rough men, and makes her a little nervous. And Patch, as we know him so far, comes to the rescue and backs everybody off. And we understand a little more about Lindsay McCabe. This is most of the character development in this issue right here, is in this scene in the bar. We learn that Lindsay McCabe has come from an area of town near the bartender. Her and the bartender kind of establish a rapport and a relationship. She tries, which was very shocking. I know this is the Copper Age. Comics are kind of leaving the family-friendly aspect. You know, we're getting kind of more adult and more mature comics here in the late 80s, and this definitely being from 1988. I shouldn't be surprised at this scene. But I was a little surprised to see Lindsay McCabe took a drink. And I was I was laughing because nobody drinks like a double shot of alcohol and then they fall on their butt and they're instantly a little buzzed, a little drunk or whatever. That's not realistic. So I got a chuckle out of this scene. Good, corny fun, like I said. Lindsay McCabe, I'm blanking here. I'm going to get through this, I promise. Lindsay McCabe drops on the floor, and then she rises back up and explains that she just had a Long Island iced tea, and that's how she kind of earns the respect of the bartender. She knew what was in the drink, and supposedly only the bartender and Wolverine can handle that drink without getting drunk. I've never had a Long Island iced tea, but I've seen what they look like. I've heard what goes in a Long Island iced tea, and honestly, I think straight up liquor is way more potent than a Long Island iced tea. But for the purpose of the story, I thought it was cute, and I thought it was fun, and it really showed that Lindsay McCabe is a little tougher, a little more rough around the edges than Wolverine or Patch gave her credit. So I like that about Lindsay McCabe. It makes her matter a little bit more. It makes me care a little bit about her more. But this is kind of a character trope that I'm not really a fan of. I don't really relate to the clean-cut, like, please do not get offended when I say this. I don't like the character trope of the basic white girl trying to act like she's tough. Like the female from the Netflix Daredevil show. I cannot stand that character trope. It's way too unbelievable for me. Way too corny. So I don't really like this scene of Lindsay McCabe trying to act tough when she's probably not. But at the same time, because Chris Claremont's such a good writer, because I've established some background with Lindsay McCabe from the first issue, it does make her matter a little more for me in this story. And while she establishes this rapport, she comes to terms with the bartender to help bartend the bar with the bartender while Wolverine is upstairs looking for Jessica Drew. And I want to pause right here and say, I thought Jessica Drew was, and I'm going to expose myself here as a total Marvel noob. You know, I have a big, massive Wolverine collection, but I am definitely a Marvel noob. I thought Jessica Drew was the Jessica from the Netflix show. That chick from Breaking Bad that starred in that Jessica show. I forget her name. It's obviously not Jessica Drew. And she was in the Defenders show on Netflix. She was part of that Netflix universe or whatever. That's who I thought Jessica Drew was reading issue 1. But it is explained in this story that Jessica Drew is Spider-Woman. And I don't know why. I know who Nancy Drew is. Nancy Drew is an author of like female, like preteen girl books. I believe I'm getting that correct. I might be getting another statement wrong here, but I always wanted to call Jessica Drew Spider-Woman Nancy Drew for some reason. I don't know. I don't know why I got that in my head. So nice to get that clarified and understand, like get my facts straight. Jessica Drew is Spider-Woman, not that Netflix universe private eye girl that's in the Defenders. I don't remember her name. It's Jessica something, but definitely not Jessica Drew. So Wolverine busts down the door. He barely remembers the scent he's looking for, Jessica Drew's scent. But he explains in his narration that he doesn't really need the scent to know which room is the right room. Kicks it in, and he immediately sees the room is laid to waste. He's probably a little late to the scene. And in comes Silver Samurai. And I'm going to butcher his name. It's Kenichido Harada. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I think it's Keniuchido is how you spell his first name. And then Harada, that's easier for me to say. Harada. Kenichido Harada is his name. I'm going to quit saying it at this point. That is the Silver Samurai. I don't know much about Silver Samurai. I've seen the Wolverine, who the Silver Samurai is the main antagonist in. I've always liked the gimmick. This book had been sitting at an LCS for quite some time, for some years, before I finally pulled the trigger. I got this exact copy. This book I had seen over and over and over, and just never quite felt like the right time to pay $10 for this issue. I got it for $10. And finally pulled the trigger. So for years I had seen this cover. I had seen the Wolverine with Silver Sun. I loved the gimmick, but I didn't know anything about Kenichido Harada. I said I was going to quit saying his name, but I said it one more time. The suit's cool. I like Japanese culture. That's another thing I enjoy about Wolverine. I have an affinity for like samurai, ninja movies. I love Japanese video games to an extent, and anime. But rabbit trails aside, nice to have some more information and learn a little bit about Silver Samurai. Really cool character. Of course, they come to blows. Of course, Silver Samurai and Wolverine, very long time rivals, going to come to blows. Silver Samurai is not aware that Patch is indeed Wolverine. Wolverine nearly pops the claws because he's trying to get the fight over with quick so he can get back on the trail of Jessica Drew. He's not there for Silver Samurai at all. This is a surprise. He's actually here for Jessica Drew. And in the middle of their fight, you don't know this at first. You know this kind of in the middle of the fight. But this woman rises up from the carnage in the apartment room, and it's Jessica Drew. She begins fighting like a woman possessed, and we don't understand as readers what's going on. I actually didn't understand what's going on. And she starts kicking butt. She starts laying, I don't want to say laying waste, because she doesn't injure Silver Samurai, but she starts dominating Silver Samurai. And it's kind of all three of them in a fight, and then it kind of turns into Silver Samurai and Wolverine having to work together to defeat Jessica Drew. And Wolverine can't really think of a way to overcome, because even his adamantium cannot really hurt this woman, this possessed woman. So he pops his claws while the other two, Silver Samurai and Jessica Drew, are fighting, and he runs his claws across the wall and brings the wall down, and it's really his only attempt to kind of stop Jessica Drew and Silver Samurai and try to figure out what's going on with Jessica Drew. Well, it doesn't, none of the destruction of the bar and the apartments did anything to Jessica Drew. She gets up and she gets away, and Wolverine runs off to chase down Jessica Drew on the rooftops of Madripoor. And while that's going on, we get some scenes of Lindsay actually helping Silver Samurai. Now, it's not overly important what's going on. They just kind of go through a life for a life kind of deal. Ancient samurai traditions, all that kind of mess. She saves his life, doesn't kill him with the silver blade that he uses as his main weapon. And in exchange, he saves her life when the floor caves in on Lindsay McCabe. And the police show up, and they take off from the police, because they're not going to stand around and get arrested, right? They take off from the police, and then we're taken back to the scene of Wolverine and Jessica Drew fighting on the rooftops. Wolverine's talking about how he lets his animal rage that he keeps locked up inside. He lets his animal rage out because he understands there's no turning back. She's a woman possessed. She's no longer Spider-Woman, the woman we all know and love from the comic books. She is possessed by the Muramasa blade, the demon that is imprisoned inside this blade. It's taken over her body. She's not the same woman anymore. And Wolverine knows it's either him or her. But before Wolverine strikes the blow, he grabs the Muramasa blade from Jessica Drew, and instantly the demon finds its master. It says, "You are worthy in spirit and value," and all that kind of stuff. All that great Chris Claremont writing. And just takes over Wolverine and finally decides that the demon inside the blade has a real master, someone he's going to serve. And we're given a scene at the end of the book with Lindsay McCabe and Silver Samurai looking up at the rooftops, and Wolverine's looking down at them, threatening to sacrifice Jessica Drew, the previous wielder of the Muramasa blade. Dun dun dun. That's where we left off at. So, that concludes issue number 2. If you want to go back to issue 1, I've already reviewed issue 1. For those of you new to the channel, I'm officially starting reviewing the Wolverine series. Now it's 196 issues, maybe 197 issues if you count issue -1. So including the annuals, and that would take like 5 years of my life to review that entire volume, because I do one review a week. So right now we're just going to do 20 issues at a time, and at the end of issue 20 I will put out a poll asking if you guys want to continue on with 20 more issues of Wolverine. If you'd like to see me review other books and get back on doing more of a random books reviewing kind of style. But so far, I'm enjoying it. We're only 2 issues in so far. I did think the dialogue was a little cheesy here. I don't want to say dated. It didn't feel like it. It didn't feel like it came from a different time and place. Only because Chris Claremont was writing the dialogue for an ancient demon, and specifically the demon possessing Jessica Drew is what I had an issue with. All of these and thys and thine and just this ancient old world speak, and it was a little jarring. I didn't care for it, but I understood the intent of the dialogue. its purpose, and so I don't have that big of a problem with it. Just a minor nitpick there. We already went over the trope. I don't care for the white bread girl trope of the white bread girl trope, trying to prove she's more than just some fragile princess. I feel like there's a more organic way to display female empowerment in storytelling, and this trope is not it for me, in my opinion. So Lindsay McCabe was a little irritating, even though she kind of redeemed herself at the same time. It's a little weird, it's a little jarring. And then seeing Silver Samurai was really cool. Learning a little bit about Silver Samurai was really cool. I thought Wolverine, the narration, it's a little corny, but again, it was fine. I thought it was interesting to note, though, as I'm processing the comic book, giving you my thoughts and opinions. In issue 1, Chris Claremont doesn't really spoon feed you the story, and through the narration and the thought bubbles Wolverine's giving you, Chris Claremont kind of spoon feeds this issue, which is odd. Not only because he didn't spoon feed you the story in issue 1, but there's not a lot of character development in this issue. It's not a filler issue. It's definitely an issue that has a purpose. It's got a beginning and an end to it, per se. But, there's just so much action in this issue, and action-oriented issues don't really need a lot of spoon feeding. You kind of understand what you're getting in a fight scene, right? So it's kind of interesting to see Chris Claremont here kind of spoon feed the issue. The art is fantastic. John Buscema greatness. I will say John Buscema is not my favorite artist of all time, but when it comes to Wolverine, I think John Buscema is one of the classic, legendary Wolverine artists, for sure. And it's always a pleasure seeing John Buscema's art on these pages. The further I get into the series, I imagine I will miss John Buscema's work in the book. I think that's about it. I feel like we had our character development issue. We got hooked in Wolverine 1, and now in Wolverine 2, we had the action we were looking for. We were setting up issue 2, and we got some of the payoff here in issue 2. But there's still more of this Muramasa Blade journey to go. There's a big wrench in the plot now. Wolverine's got the Muramasa Blade, and he's possessed by the demon sword. And I'm real interested to kind of move through this art, because I believe even to this day, I think in some of the Ten of Swords story that came out a year or two ago, kind of gives reference to this when Wolverine was possessed by the Muramasa Blade. So it's very interesting and very exciting for me to read about that time in his history when he was possessed by the Muramasa Blade. Very interested in issue 3. So issue 2, another excellent issue in the books. I still have to say I prefer issue 1, but this wasn't bad at all. Having fun on this journey. I want to give shout out to Dan's X-Men Comics. I wouldn't be doing this book if it wasn't for you and your comment wanting me to review Wolverine. I hope you enjoyed my review. I hope I did a good enough job for you. I hope I did a good enough job for everybody else watching. I really enjoy reviewing comic books. It gives me a chance to read books and enjoy what I already own. That's sometimes as collectors and I understand some people are like purely collectors. They don't necessarily read their books. They cover buy for and treat comics like art or whatever the case may be. But I feel like sometimes us collectors that do both collect and read, we kind of forget the reading part. We're so concerned with filling our runs and hunting books and bringing stuff into the PC that we forget to kind of slow down and just enjoy what we already own. So I'm really appreciative of my collection. I'm appreciative of your guys' enthusiasm to help motivate me to read my comic books. And I also want to shout out, before I get off here, 22 Comics. We kind of established a rapport. I would even dare I say a friendship over the last couple of weeks. It's been a pleasure getting to know you, man. You're a fantastic addition to the community, and you hooked me up with a website that you use for your comic book imagery. And I'm not going to give the link. I'm not going to disclose the information of the website I used, the website Mike uses. I will only review and read books that I own personally. That is, I know that's kind of a conflict of interest because I'm reviewing video games I'm using on an emulator. So it kind of makes me a hypocrite, and I will fully acknowledge that. But when it comes to the comic book, something I have a very big moral opinion about. I definitely don't want to steal comic books. I'm just using this resource to display imagery because Googling these comic books gives me a very limited amount of pages to look at, to display for these reviews. And I think it makes these reviews a lot more enjoyable if I'm able to display the pages, and you can kind of, maybe you can't read them because I know I don't blow the pages up to fit the whole screen, but I feel like it makes it a little more entertaining, a little more interesting, and you guys can get the story from me. But yeah, thank you, 22 Comics, for that resource. And I want to thank everybody else out there in the community for watching, supporting, liking, commenting, all that kind of stuff. And until next time, guys.